Thought I'd offer a video going a little bit more in depth on how my custom SKU based cabinet pricing system works. I got a chance to talk to a few people and got some more insight on how people like to see this kind of thing set up. And also, just that people wanted more info. How does it work? So I'll show you a couple details on this. It's it's a pretty complex system. One is at the base of this is my core cabinet label, which determines a bunch of things based on what the cabinet is publishing for data. And I've come up with solutions for almost any condition, and I feel like for the most part I can handle any condition. So if we've got a particular cabinet that's falling under some really strict parameters, usually have some kind of method. Now, if there's a particular cabinet where you think that it might be challenging to pick up or detail in terms of defining that cabinet from the characteristics of the cabinets coming from Chief Architect, just give me a call and we can talk it through. But at the core of this is a base wall and full cabinet, including fillers macro that determines what every cabinet is. And that's at the core of my cabinet labeling system that's in my Pro plan. But this comes with anytime you purchase my cabinet pricing system is I'm going to give you this same label parameter to throw in your own template. And so we're just going to take here, for instance, we've got a base 24 cabinet. You see as we widen it out, it's going to pick up width. If we add depth that's outside of a standard depth, it's going to pick out what that depth is. And if we change the height, it's going to pick that out as well. If we turn it into a 2-drawer base versus a 3-drawer base, it understands that. It understands when you've got full height double doors in this case. So it'll change that parameter as well. Or full height single door, same thing. It's going to pick up that this is some kind of full height door. If we change to a corner cabinet, so let's just say we push into, excuse this corner cabinet, I'm going to push into this corner. It's going to pick up that this is a corner cabinet 36 by 36. And then of course we can paint this to be an inside corner cabinet. It's still going to understand that that is a corner cabinet. If we paint this with a Lazy Susan, it's going to understand that that's suddenly a Lazy Susan. Same thing goes for any number of different tools from my kitchen tools package, which also come with your purchase of any SKU-based cabinet system, is you'll get my full kitchen tools, which is these single click actions to say, change this to a garbage pullout, or if this parameter goes underneath a certain dimension, it's going to understand that this is some kind of spice pullout. Got a tool here to just revert this back to default. So now it's a 24-inch cabinet default. I also have tools to make this into a blind corner cabinet. And it's specifically going to add a particular opening here so that Quick Tools understand this is a blind corner cabinet. So we've got a dynamic labeling convention. That same labeling convention goes into understanding what the cabinet is in terms of pricing as well. So back to this little diagram is we've got some user configurable options. I'll show you what those look like. So we've got a list here, and in this list is how we are looking at cabinets. So we've got cabinet pricing variables and markup. And on top of that, we've got how we're going to define our cabinet label options. So for instance, an end panel, we're going to call it EPNL. Now I can change this, and I'll just say, for example, we'll just put an example here instead. So for an end panel, we're going to change this to example. Also want to look down this list, and we're going to see that we've got some per panel pricing. So this is a special configuration for a cabinet vendor that's doing custom cabinets, and this is how they wanted to price things. So it's simple for me to make a system that caters to you if you're a custom cabinet vendor. So in this case, we're saying that a full piece of plywood costs $360. Let's just change this down to $310, and I'm going to press OK. Back out of this. And so what'll happen is all these custom prices will reflect that change. If I hit Control Z, we're going to look at this 762 number. If I hit Control Z, there we go. We can see that it didn't in fact reflect some kind of a change. And so we changed that naming convention for a cabinet that was an end panel. Well, look what happens when we shrink this down to a certain size. It uses that example 3 as opposed to end panel 3. So under a certain size, we're going to assume that a cabinet is an end panel, and I can configure these any way that you'd like to configure them. Now let's move on to something else here. Custom pricing parameters. That was also in our options there. So we see that we are setting up a particular custom pricing setup for a particular cabinet vendor. And I can show you all the various options that I can implement in order to get you the pricing that you need if you're a custom cabinet shop. Next is we've got manufacturer price sheet. So this is a price sheet index, and it's not just limited to one manufacturer. And I'll give you an example of this. These three cabinets here are part of a vanity-based cabinet setup from a particular vendor called Walnut Ridge. So I can give you a single-click tool that enables you to draw a marquee over these cabinets and say, hey, I want to see if there's a lookup for this particular vendor. And in fact, there are matches. And it indexes based on what your finish options are sprayed to these cabinets. So notice that these two cabinets are the exact same cabinets, but they have different prices. That's because one has a different finish. If I were to apply that different finish this cabinet, you're going to see that this is updated as well. So I can give you single click actions to change the finish or color of a cabinet, and that will reflect in the pricing change as well. And not only that, but we can mix and match vendors. So I've got another vendor here, which is the Luxor cabinet brand, and I'm going to skip these three. So I can just see if I can get this to do an inverse lookup here. No, I can't. So I'm just going to spray over these cabinets right here, and I'll spray over these cabinets over here. And we're going to see if there is a match. Now, if there's not a match, it's going to pass through that custom cabinet, okay? If there is a match to the cabinet line, it's going to pick up that match and tell you the price according to that cabinet line. So here we go. We've got a drawer base. This is a 3-drawer base 30 that matches that Luxor brand DB30. This is a regular base 27 that matches. This is a sink base 33 that matches. Giving another example of this, here's our 33-inch corner base, right, with the Lazy Susan. So this matches a particular setup here. If I change this, let's just move this in 3 inches. We're going to see that this no longer matches, but watch what happens when I bring this in 3 inches. It does match their car 33 corner base Lazy Susan. So this is dynamic, right? And not only that, but I give you single click actions to clear all manufacturers back to just default. So quick and easy. I can load as many manufacturers as you sell. So so long as I have a price cut list to understand what each cabinet is, there you go. That's all set up. And then we already went over nomenclature for labeling. We've got our custom pricing parameters. We can add on additional pricing adjustments based on finishes, and that can be either paint color based, or it could be any number of things really. We can utilize some of the things that are built into the cabinets, including supplier information or custom fields, etc. Then I want to showcase just how I'm doing moldings in this case. So for moldings, cabinets as a publisher output some data that shows a finished side versus an unfinished side. Now, cabinets out of the box are set to auto finish, which means that if I butting cabinets together, these sides that are joined together here, butted together, those are automatically set to unfinished. So what I'm doing with our molding takeoffs here is I'm saying, hey, if I have an unfinished side, that means that this molding is continuing on the front of this cabinet, all right? Because each cabinet owns its length of molding. So in this case, we've got a finished side, which means that we've got a miter joint. This system knows when we've got a miter joint based on those parameters, meaning that since we have a miter joint, we're going to add to the length of the molding based on the width of the molding profile that we're adjusting for. So this can accurately figure out exactly how long of a molding you need plus cut lengths for miters. Okay. Then it will report it to schedule. Same thing with this particular one. Right now it's got 3 sides, right? So it's 2-side finish. It knows that, so it knows the miter. So it's showing right now that what it's showing here is it's our overall length on top here. If I move this off the back here, all of a sudden it's going to have a 4 sides, so it's going to have additional miters. And notice that the numbers changed as we did this. So this is all set up, and you can set this up on a manufacturer to manufacturer basis. And all you're doing there is you're listing what the overall cut length is. So this is based on, that 0.41 is based on the length of a 10-foot section for this manufacturer, because this manufacturer only sells in 10-foot lengths, okay? You can set this up in user options, or you can set this up based on the manufacturer pricing sheet itself. So if this is only sold in 8-foot sections, then it's going to adjust accordingly. I'll give you an example of this. We'll just spray the Luxor brand on top of this. Now this is going to be based on that Luxor. And then let me get into my pricing sheet here. And I'm assuming that we're only going to be adjusting this one time and that's it. So this isn't something that you need to come in here and know how to adjust on the fly. But let's move it to the Walnut Ridge pricing sheet. Walnut Ridge. And typically I do this in some kind of other editor, but here I've got my molding cut length is 10 and molding price per piece is $46. So let me switch to a Walnut Ridge. We're just going to show that this is adjusted. Okay, now from here, we see that 0.492254. Get back into that pricing sheet. I'll show you what happens when we adjust our length here. I'm going to instead say that this is sold in an 8-foot cut length and our pricing is going to be $26. You're going to see that this, in fact, does adjust based on that. So I can give you overall molding prices, including how many pieces we need at that cut length that you've established, on top of our regular code lookup for matched pricing from your pricing index sheet on a vendor by vendor basis, or reverting back to custom. And all of this is reflective in a schedule that totals for you. So that's a pretty exhaustively expansive system. If you got any questions about this, hit me up. I'm happy to answer any questions about it. Thanks.